Hi, I'm James, and today we're going to look at this set, Axis and Allies D-Day. This was donated to me by my good friend Neil Grant. Thanks for that, Neil. And it's basically a game simulating the D-Day landings using the Axis and Allies rule set. It's probably one of the simpler games in the series. It's intended for 2 to 3 players aged 12 or more. It's got a nice bit of box art, but straight away it, in my eyes, gives the classic problem with any representation of World War II. You have nearly all American. You've got all the American infantry. You could, in the background, you can just make out the one of the bunkers, and when we come over to this side, you've got a German aircraft, and looks like a P-51 Mustang. I'm not an expert on aircraft. No mention of the British or Canadian, let alone things like the Free French. And people don't realise as well there were things like some of the Royal Norwegian Navy were actually involved as well. So yeah, usual sort of thing. Let's open the box and have a look, because that isn't, it's not a deal breaker. It just annoys me. So we've got the operations manual, or the rule book. It's nicely done. I like this first page, which actually is Eisenhower's message for D-Day. So you've got all the usual things. You've got the credits. It's nice, well spaced out text. If you've played Axis and Allies, there's not a lot that you need to know that's new in there. You can see it's, you know, it's plenty of it. You've got advanced rules, which are not especially advanced, if I'm honest. But for your first couple of plays, they're probably not that useful. So I'll put that to one side. Let's have a look at the actual sort of physical contents. So we've got the game board. Quite a reasonably sized board. And it shows the area around the sites of the Normandy landings. So let's just have a quick look at it. Geographically, it's quite nice. The beaches are all clearly indicated. At least it does mention that they're Canadian, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division landing there. Yeah, it's an area movement game. There's 3 big victory locations: Caen, Saint-Lô and Cherbourg. So interestingly, it looks like then the bulk of the fighting is going to depend on the Americans getting to Cherbourg and Saint-Lô, because by the end of the game, which is 10 turns long, you have to have held them for all 3 in the same turn for a full turn, which isn't as easy as it sounds. That said, looking at it, I think realistically there's a lot of reinforcements will be coming on at this point. So it does actually simulate the situation of the Normandy landings, where the British were tying up the German troops and the Americans then made the breakout. So yeah, okay, I suppose that's realistic. Now there is a lot of space south of the objectives, particularly on the British side. Now that seems a bit of a waste, because obviously the fighting will concentrate around Caen. That said, the Germans have to move up, and part of the game involves the airstrikes on them. So okay, I can live with that. So what else do we get in the box? Well, we get the reinforcement cards for each side. And you also got a battle board. We'll look at that in a minute. So what we've got one for the US, one for the British, and one for the Germans, which is actually split into 2 halves. Now if you're playing this with 3 players, one controls the British, one controls the German, so the German, one controls the US. If you're playing it with 2 player, it's 1 German player and 1 Allied player. So relatively straightforward. The battle board, we'll quick look at the mechanisms. Now I did like this little touch. There are a series of cards with the game. And what you have the order cards, and they're numbered, and these have gone out of order now. But what they do is they basically are your turn sequence. So I'll just put a couple of them put them into order, and then we can have a quick look. Yeah, these got really mixed up last time I got these out. Can't see them. We're on that one. 6. I was thinking that was a G. That was what threw me. Font is not brilliant. The 5 and the 6, sorry, 5 and the 3 look very similar. So what we do with these, you can put these on the board and just turn them over for each turn. So order card 1, okay, it's only used in the first turn and is the allied airborne attack. So you roll 1 dice for each infantry unit in the airborne box. On a 1 it's hit, so it causes a hit. So the airborne landing will knock down units quite quickly. You've then got naval bombardment. Roll 6 dice, block target only blockhouses, 2 or less destroys each one. You then place fighters where you want to do, which will interdict movement. You've then got place bombers, and they inflict hits straight away. So there's a subtle difference between your tactical air power and your strategic. The strategic do the damage there. The tactical only stop units moving in, or affect units moving in. So you then roll anti-aircraft fire against fighters with a 1 destroying them. Then you shoot against bombers. Bombers then return to base. Land units then move to adjacent areas, with armour being able to move up to 2 if there's nothing in the first area. But you can't. That doesn't move land units in the beachheads. Blockhouses then fire out to sea, hitting on a 3 or less. Land units move from the beachhead into adjacent zones, so that's when they land. Axis defends, so we do a round of combat. The Axis player then moves. The Allies then defend. The Allies then reinforce. The fighters land, and the Axis reinforce. So it's not a complex game sequence. That's your entire set of rules, effectively. Now there are the optional cards. You've got Fortune and Tactics. Now Tactics basically are optional, and if you look again, they're numbered all the way through, and they make a difference. So for example, for the Tactics card 1, which affects the Allies, paratroop reinforcements. Roll 1 dice for each airborne box. On a roll of 3 or less, that many paratroops land there. Choose the next Allied infantry reinforcements. They land immediately with make a targeted attack. So basically it lets you put extra things in. The Germans then on Tactics card 2, again this is a one use card, can use V2 rockets. Roll 1 dice for each Allied reinforcement chart. On a roll of a 4 or less, remove the first available unit from it, so it's not exactly that effective. And you've got the different tactics there. You've then got the Fortune cards as well. The tactics are always optional. The Fortune cards aren't. So with these, they affect that sequence. So, for example, the airborne assault, roll 1 dice. On a 1, it's a complete surprise, and the infantry hit on a 2 or less rather than just on a 1. 2 to 5, it has no effect. Or 6, it's in disarray. The Axis player chooses and removes 2 of the infantry in the airborne boxes, and the remaining units cannot attack on that phase. So that's the drop gone badly wrong. So the further down the line, the bombers on a 1, target of opportunity, they hit on a 5 or less, so they're much more effective. 2 to 5, no effect. 6, airfield and readiness, roll a dice per bomber. On a roll of 4 or higher, cannot strike in this phase. So they come up each turn if you want to. Basically a 1 is bad, so 1 is good, 6 is bad. So it gives a bit of more of a random element to the game. So they are the cards, and then we get the, as you can see, quite a few figures plus 8 dice. Now I've pulled out one of each of the figures just to have a look at them. Put them against there, if I bring it up close. So we've got the American infantry figure, yeah, that's fine. Nothing particularly drastic there. The German infantry figure, again, nothing particularly drastic there. Now the British figure, it's in desert gear. I'm not sure why anybody would have been wearing shorts on D-Day. I know it was summer, but I haven't seen a single bit of footage of anybody wearing shorts on D-Day. I think it's just the standard, they've used the standard Axis and Allies figure. It almost feels like, yep, typical American, they've got it wrong again. I know that's probably sounding biased being British, but it does just sometimes feel that way. So tank wise, we've got the Sherman, yeah, just in different colours, yeah, that's fine. Could be picky and point out it's got the sand skirts on, which you should remove from the American one. That would be so picky, I think that even I'm not that bad. The German tank is a Panther, which means it actually gains an extra value when it's defending. You get the artillery pieces. Now you've got 105mm guns for British and American again. It's just odd because that wasn't exactly a British gun. The British should have had a 25-pounder. Yeah, I know, it's picky. We've got a German 88. Okay, it's the flak version of it. And because the guns in the game function as flak and artillery, I can live with that. We've got the aircraft. Now there was an interesting choice here for the fighters. We've gone for different aircraft, which is good. We've actually got the Lightning, which was a bit of a surprise, and the Spitfire. I'm not quite sure why they used the Lightning. I would have thought Thunderbolts or Mustangs, but yeah, they're fine. Now the Americans get the B-17. Yeah, that's fine. Now this was a surprise one. I looked at that and thought, that's not a Lancaster, and it's actually a Halifax. Not what I would have immediately jumped out as the Allied bombing aircraft, but yeah, okay. And then we've got the German blockhouses. Yeah, so you've got all of those. Now what I'll do is just show you how the combat works using the battle board. So what you can do is pull all the figures off from the board and put them onto here. So it does give you all the order cards there. So we'll assume for the minute that the Germans are defending. They've got a couple of infantry. They've got an anti-aircraft gun. Let's find them a tank as well. Oh, got a blockhouse there as well. And a tank, there we go. So we've then got the attacking forces. We'll have, use the British for this. So we'll have 3 infantry. There's a limit of 8 in a square, so we're not going to go above that. So we'll have 4 infantry. Got a tank. However, aircraft wouldn't feature in this because they'd be off dealing with things separately. An artillery. Yeah, that'll do us there. So we'll get some dice as well. So let's start with the attacking side. So we've got 4 infantry and they hit on a 1. So we'll get 4 dice. We'll roll them. They've all missed. We've then got the artillery, which hits on a 2 or less, that misses, and the tank 3 or less, that misses. Okay, so let's go to the German side. We've got a blockhouse which defends on a 1 and it's hit, so 1 unit is destroyed. We've then got 2 infantry in the artillery hitting on 2s, and 1 of them hits. And then we've got the tank. Now the German tank defends on a 3, attacks on a 2. So it's defending here and it misses. So we've lost 2 British units. So what we'll do now is we'll swap that over with what's left for the next round of combat. So put those into the relevant spaces. And now the values are slightly different, which is quite interesting. So the German attack then, we've got 2 infantry hitting on a 1. They've both missed. An artillery hitting on a 2, so we've got 1 hit there. And we've got a tank and a blockhouse hitting on a 3, and they've both hit. So they still get to shoot back. That's why I've just dropped them into that casualty zone. So we've now got 2 infantry and the artillery hitting on a 2. Complete miss, and a tank hitting on a 2 as well. Put that in the wrong box. So that's not looking good for the British there. So you can see the combat mechanism is actually incredibly fast. What really makes the game is the way that the cards affect the sequence. They're a set order, which makes life nice and easy. And having the different tactics and fortune can just affect the game a little. Now the reinforcements are actually very simple. I'll just set this up quickly. Now basically each figure in this represents a brigade. So it just does give you an idea what you're talking about. And it does identify them by what they are on the chart here. So the ones I'm putting on at the minute are the 2nd Infantry Division. Maybe go with artillery, yeah. Now, while this is quite nice, the way it identifies the different units, what it doesn't do is that doesn't have any impact once they actually get onto the board. As soon as they get onto the board, they're just a piece. It makes no difference. So, just to show you how the reinforcement phase works, each side, or each force, and then remember there are 2 German forces for this, when they get to the reinforcement phase, they roll the dice to see what they get. So 12, that's the absolute maximum number of units you've got. So what will happen with that, what we need to do is look at these. So we've got there the 101st Airborne. Now the 101st Airborne have landed there, so we get an additional unit landing there. We've then got the 90th Infantry Division. So the 90th, okay, where do they land? Not specific, and ditto the 7 Corps Artillery. So if it's not specific, oh sorry, my apologies, I'm looking at it, I'm reading it the wrong way around. It's Utah Beach they land at, so they all now start arriving on Utah Beach. So we've now used 4, 6, so we've got 6 more units to come. So we now get the Omaha Beach units. So we've got an infantry, an artillery, 3 more infantry, and another artillery. So it basically simulates the confusion of landing and how slow it is to get off the beachheads. Remember, they can't actually move onto the beachhead unless there's space, and you can only have 8 units in there. So you can see very quickly you get the traffic jam effect, and you work down in order going through the units. Some of them will let you land on any beach, which is quite useful. Once your initial landing's done, you can then decide, right, okay, I'm now going to divert to there. That's not going fast. I'm not fully convinced that all of the Utah stuff lands before all the Omaha. That must land at Utah as well then. I'm not convinced on that. I think that was just an accident of D-Day with Omaha being slower. Yeah, okay, we're not talking a highly detailed war game here. I need to remember that. So you can see it's a very quick, I suppose, beer and pretzels is probably doing it a disservice. There is a bit more to it than that. It's a simple game, and it's a great way probably to introduce kids to wargaming. I think that is quite effective, and to teach the history behind it. I don't think there's enough for a real grognard to get into, but as a quick, simple wargame, it is pretty straightforward. It does capture some of the tactics of D-Day and the planning that went into it. And you get to move a lot of figures around a board, which is always nice.